The world of mixed martial arts thrives on unpredictability. Just when you think you've seen everything, the sport finds new ways to shock its fans, blur the lines of order and chaos, and push its most iconic figures into uncharted waters. This week, those waters were stormed not by a reckless newcomer or a bitter rival, but by the man who has come to symbolize composure, control, and respect inside the cage, Khabib Nurmagomedov. A moment that began with his protégé taking illegal shots ended with the legend himself crossing the line, physically confronting referee Jason Herzog in a way that few could have ever imagined. For a fighter remembered as unflappable, the footage was jarring, and it has since sent shockwaves through the global MMA community. But this wasn't an isolated drama. It unfolded against a backdrop of chaotic weigh-ins, career-defining showdowns, and the ever-changing chessboard of the lightweight and middleweight divisions. To understand why this moment carries so much weight, we have to rewind and examine the combustible state of MMA leading up to it. Only a day before the sport's eyes turned to Khabib's outburst, another drama was unfolding thousands of miles away. The co-main event of UFC Fight Night in Shanghai was supposed to be a grappler's delight, a stylistic clash between Aljamain Sterling and Brian Ortega, two men whose careers have been defined by slick submissions, relentless scrambles, and the ability to snatch victory from impossible positions. Yet at the weigh-ins, all anyone could talk about was not the matchup itself, but Ortega's body. When he stepped on stage, the expression told the entire story before he even opened his mouth. His face looked drained, his skin drawn tight like parchment. His eyes hollowed as if the price of cutting down had stripped away not only water, but vitality itself. Every experienced fan and fighter watching knew the signs, and the concern spread quickly through the MMA community. Some voices called for the UFC to postpone the fight, arguing that Ortega was in no state to endure 25 minutes of combat at the highest level. Still, the promotion pressed forward. The bout was reconfigured as a catchweight contest at 153 pounds, but the danger was clear. This was not the same Ortega who once terrorized opponents with lightning-quick guillotines and a suffocating ground game. For Sterling, the fight represented more than another step in his career. It was a chance to silence doubters, to prove that his blend of wrestling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu could dismantle one of the division's most respected submission artists. The stakes were high, the styles perfectly matched, and yet the specter of Ortega's health loomed over everything. Would his weakened frame betray him the moment the cage door shut, or would the instincts of a lifelong grappler carry him through the storm? Even Renato Moicano, who had once faced Ortega himself, couldn't resist weighing in. With the bluntness that only fighters can bring, Moicano dismissed Ortega's jiu-jitsu as outdated, saying what worked in 2018 no longer cuts it in the modern game. Still, he admitted, Ortega's guillotine remains deadly, though he doubted Sterling would fall victim to it. His prediction was simple: Aljamain Sterling by decision. Yet in the theater of MMA, predictions mean little. What matters is what happens when two men lock horns and everything else, weight cuts, speculation, past glories, fades into the roar of combat. While Sterling and Ortega's story unfolded in Asia, another tale was brewing in North America, one that carried a different energy altogether. Anthony "Fluffy" Hernandez, the rising middleweight known for his relentless pace and refusal to break, found himself in a chance encounter with his upcoming opponent, Reinier de Ridder. It happened not in a press conference or a media scrum, but in the most ordinary of places, an elevator. According to Hernandez, the interaction was casual, even friendly, with Fluffy going so far as to invite the Dutch grappling specialist to smoke with him. It was a moment of levity in a sport built on violence, a reminder that not every rivalry has to drip with venom. Yet behind the smiles lay serious stakes. De Ridder, known for his suffocating submission arsenal, represents the kind of challenge that Hernandez has built his career trying to solve. And in Hernandez's eyes, the sport has moved beyond specialists. He didn't mince words when he criticized Khamzat Chimaev, dismissing him as one-dimensional and arguing that in the new generation of MMA, versatility is king. You can't simply be a wrestler or a striker or a grappler anymore. You have to be everything. Hernandez believes he is that kind of fighter, the kind who can adapt, improvise, and figure out an opponent in the opening seconds of a fight. For him, the bout with de Ridder is not just about victory, it's about proving a philosophy of fighting, a worldview that the future belongs to those who are complete. But while Ortega's drained face and Hernandez's elevator encounter set the stage, it was Khabib's eruption that stole the spotlight. For years, the Russian legend has been the embodiment of stoic control. Ever since he mauled Conor McGregor in 2018 and then famously leapt out of the cage in a moment of chaos, Khabib has cultivated an image of restraint, of someone who learned from his mistakes and vowed never to let emotion override discipline again. As a coach and mentor, he has been even more measured, often preaching patience, focus, and respect. That is why when footage emerged of him storming the cage, grabbing Jason Herzog by the back of the head, and demanding answers for what he saw as repeated illegal blows to his fighter, the shock was seismic. The fighter himself, his protégé, had already shown frustration as he returned to his corner. But Khabib wasn't content to let the matter end with a conversation between rounds. He inserted himself directly into the drama, physically imposing on one of the sport's most respected referees in a way that left fans divided. Some praised him, arguing that he was defending his fighter in the heat of battle, standing up for justice when the officials failed. Others condemned the move outright, warning that if even figures like Khabib ignore the sanctity of referee authority, the entire order of the sport begins to crumble. The Russian MMA community in particular erupted in debate, with some seeing Khabib's actions as a noble stand and others branding it an unacceptable breach of professionalism. What made the moment even more combustible was Khabib's silence afterward. He offered no clarification, no apology, no explanation. Into that void of words, speculation poured like gasoline. Was this a glimpse of the old, hot-blooded Khabib resurfacing? Was it simply the protective instincts of a coach seeing one of his own endangered? Or was it something deeper, a sign that the pressures of leadership and expectation weigh even on those who seem carved from stone? As that storm continued to rage, another front opened in the lightweight division. Ilia Topuria, the undefeated phenom who recently ascended to the throne, had his return date quietly leaked, not through a press release but through Arman Tsarukyan himself. While cornering Khamzat Chimaev in Chicago, Tsarukyan revealed that Topuria wouldn't defend his title until January or February of 2026. For contenders, this news was both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it created a gap, a window of opportunity, for fighters to jockey for position. On the other, it forced them into uncertainty, knowing the champion's timeline would dictate their fates. Tsarukyan himself made his case clearly. After being sidelined too long, he wants back in the cage before the year ends. He mentioned Abu Dhabi or Qatar as possible venues, floated names like Justin Gaethje and Dan Hooker, and made no secret of his preference, Paddy Pimblett. The baddie, of course, has been doing everything in his power to thrust himself into the title conversation, even squaring off with Topuria at UFC 317. But fans remain skeptical, many insisting that Pimblett has yet to truly prove himself against the elite. Still, in a sport where narratives often shape opportunities as much as merit, the seeds of a future showdown are already sprouting. Tsarukyan's comments also carried a sharp edge. He declared that on a personal level, he dislikes every fighter in the weight class, and he doubled down on his belief that Khamzat Chimaev is untouchable, a level above everyone else. For him, training alongside Chimaev during his dismantling of Dricus du Plessis only solidified that conviction. Whether fans agree or not, Tsarukyan's words added another layer of fire to an already crowded division, one that promises chaos in the months ahead. And so, all these stories, the drained figure of Ortega, the calm before the storm elevator chat of Hernandez, the silence of Topuria, the hunger of Tsarukyan, collided in the shadow of Khabib's confrontation. It was a reminder that MMA is not just about knockouts and submissions, it is about the fragile ecosystem of respect, order, and passion that holds the sport together. When a fighter like Khabib crosses the line, the ripple effects are enormous, not just for him, but for every coach, every fighter, and every fan who looks to the sport for both discipline and drama. Whether he was right or wrong, justified or reckless, the image of him gripping Jason Herzog will linger. It will be replayed, debated, and dissected because it touches on the very heart of combat sports, the balance between fire and control. Interessant. The end, perhaps that is why MMA continues to captivate. Because for every flawless strategy and carefully crafted game plan, there is always the human element, flawed, emotional, unpredictable, that can erupt without warning. And when it comes, from the most disciplined among us, the shock is even greater. The weeks and months ahead will reveal how the UFC, the commissions, and Khabib himself choose to navigate the fallout. But one thing is certain, the story of that moment will not fade quickly. It has joined the pantheon of unforgettable scenes in MMA history, a reminder that even legends are human, and that in this sport, anything can happen. So now the question falls to you. Was Khabib defending his fighter in the purest sense of loyalty, or did he overstep in a way that undermines the very fabric of the sport? And what does this mean for the perception of referees, fighters, and coaches going forward? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into the chaos of MMA, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more breakdowns, and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment in the fight game.